Call this meeting to order. It's March 26, 2013. This is the Sioux Falls City Council informational meeting. Welcome everyone to Carnegie Town Hall and those of you watching live on CityLink and siouxfalls.org. It's great to have you all here. We'll get started with our agenda this afternoon. We'll start with a report from the Land Use Committee, which met Tuesday, March 19th. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, we did. We had a good meeting. Chad Heavey explained some of the new procedures of well, let me read that. Acceptance procedures and requirements for private construction of public improvements. Now, if that's not a tongue-tire and kind of a double negative and a reverse osmosis or whatever, I don't know. But what it amounts to is 99% of this is when you put a slow-down ramp or a speed-up ramp coming out of or into a business or that kind of thing, and when the private companies when private developers put those in. A good example he had was of the South Minnesota McDonald's. When they put that deceleration lane on Minnesota Avenue, they used some of their land and put that in, and they put that in as part of their expense in the remodeling. And when they do that, they put some regulations on that, some some deals that say it has to be so wide, it has to be so high, you know, all the curbs and all that kind of thing. And they've revamped those and are planning on making that part of the code. And that was the extent of our meeting. It was interesting to find out about that and why they do it and how they do it. And so that's what we did as part of our meeting on the last meeting. So.
Okay. Does that move to full council then?
Yes, that is being moved on to full council. You'll be getting that in April. I think it's on our next meeting.
Okay.
No, I'm being on the 9th.
All right. Good. Great. Questions for Councilor Rolfing or for the committee? Thank you very much. Moving on to open discussion. Council open discussion. Go ahead, Councilor Staggers.
Yes. For about a year now, the administration has mentioned that in March we would have a report on the snow gates. However, I guess that's changed. My understanding is that our next City Council meeting, April 2nd, we will have a report on the snow gates.
Mm-hmm. And our heads-up notes from leadership are that they have a long period of time scheduled, so it should be interesting and detailed, so yeah. Be ready. Other items for open discussion this afternoon. I do have one. This is one of my favorite times of the year in Sioux Falls. It is the free landfill pass. They will be mailed on Friday. They will be available for use. They'll be valid until the 29th day of June, and you'll remember that that's for taking anything that you have. You know, it's time to clean out the garage, hint, hint, and haul those items to the landfill, and you won't be charged anything for dumping there. Remember to tarp, or there is an extra fee, but there's all kinds of really great information in it this year. As Director Cotter said, it's not engineers telling us how to load our vehicles anymore. It's actually graphic artists so that you can tell how to do it and where to take it. So look for this in your mail starting this weekend. It does mail on Friday, so I'm excited about that. Anything else for open discussion this afternoon? All right, let's move on to our presentation this afternoon. Monthly Events Center project update, starting with Mr. Cotter from Public Works. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. We'll have several slides to give you an update on what's been happening on the new Event Center for the last 60 days. Before we advance to the next slide, if you look at the arc of the building that's adjacent to Western Avenue, you see those windows that are in the building, and you've got metal panel that is around those windows. There'll be some details coming up that show you how the metal panels will attach and also how the headers will set up some of those windows. So you start to see some of that level of detail happening now that the building's starting to be erected. We also have the steering committee here today, as well as Jason Miranowski with Mortensen to answer questions for you. All right. The workforce is significantly picking up. This is an exercise. It's called Stretch and Bend. It's something that Mortensen has all the subcontractors do. It's a mandatory exercise twice a day. It gives them an opportunity to not only make sure people stretch and stay limber, but also gives them an opportunity to share with the entire group where people will be working, maybe some specific things on safety to be conscious of. It's been a very safe site. There's been 4 recordable incidents, but no lost time. And so what that means is you may have a thumb that gets stitches, but if the person comes back to work the next day, that means that there's been no lost time. And so it's been a very good 193 days straight now with no lost time accidents. This is just a bird's eye view. We've got 2 cameras out on site, one that captures the live feed as you go onto the website, and then we have another higher quality camera that's capturing a number of pictures on a daily basis, so ultimately we can roll up time-lapse videos. In addition, our title sponsor has agreed to fly the site with a helicopter once a month at about the same time from now till the end of the construction period to capture similar views so we can document from the air the progression of the construction. All right. Again, Mortenson's done a very good job organizing subcontractors. Today there's 13 subcontractors on the job doing multiple facets of work. As you can see, the steel, we've earlier talked about the 4 stair towers that were being erected in each corner. Those are the primary stair towers and the elevators. They're also some of the main utility chases for the structure. Now the steel is going up. This steel that you see has been fabricated at Egger Steel Company in Sioux Falls and is being erected by LPR. The steel today is at 92 feet, and some of those highest points will actually receive the truss structures. Some of the sheltered area we'll talk about here in a minute. All right, this is a view from the suite concourse, which is the second concourse looking back toward the convention center. Again, right in the center of the picture, that's essentially center ice or center court. Very organized site. As you're out there, Mortenson does a very good job making sure everyone has an adequate space to work and that it's a very safe site. All right, you know, some of the areas, as you start to really see the various subcontractors work on site, you see that there's just a number of things to get coordinated with the steel, the duct work, the plumbing, the electrical work, and so they use the 4D model to make sure on a weekly basis that they're always looking for clashes on the computer before they ultimately would have this happen in the field. So they'll focus on a specific section of the building where there's going to be a number of trades working. They'll model everything in the computer to make sure that the electrical conduits and the ductwork and those kinds of things don't clash so they don't lose any time in the field. Also our designers in the room as well as our code officials. So it's been a very good coordination effort. One of the comments that Terry Van Dyke mentioned the other day, he's in Public Works, he's on site full-time. He said that the steel is just, it's all fit very well. And so, you know, a large part of that is a good fabricator locally, Egger Steel, and also just the use of this BIM modeling. Here are just 2 shots of the stair towers on the north side of the building along with that crane. That crane reaches nearly 300 feet. And Jason tells us that there's a larger crane coming to the site to help set the roof trusses. So a lot of large equipment will be used. All right, this with the cold temperatures that we've had in March, even with it being a mild winter, they're still not temperature conducive to pour concrete. And so you have to shelter these areas, you heat them, and then ultimately start to pour. We've had one pour last week on the main concourse. We had another one this week. We had one pour on the suite concourse, and we'll have another one this week. And so that's just some efforts of the concrete floor slabs being poured on the concourses. This is Pesca Construction, placing the concrete. And if you look close between those 2 individuals, I don't have my pointer, that you can see some of the electrical conduits coming up from the floor. They're painted red. So just a number of items, floor drains that they're all working in. They're all GPS'd in, and so they're the exact location per the drawings. All right, just another shot. We have a couple shots here. So inside the shelter, it's at the right ambient temperature for these floor pours. See the reinforcing steel that's in the floor. Some finish work happening. Another picture of finish work happening. All right, this is the picture I just wanted you to track with on the windows. The headers where there's no metal studs, those areas, that's where the windows will be received. And then the metal stud is, there'll be a sheeting, there'll be insulation, and then ultimately that metal panel that you've seen on that front picture, that's where they'll be attached. So you start to see just a number of respective trades working as the steel is erected, then mechanical, electrical, plumbing subs come through, then the wall subcontractors, just a number of items that are very well coordinated on site. All right, we're still bidding work, and so some current bid activity that's happening is what we call bid package 5. And starting to really focus in on the finish work, the painting, case work, which is essentially the cabinets, the doors, ceilings, curtains. Curtains are the curtains that would close off the vomidors. Also, if we wanted to close off the upper deck or do a half-house curtain for a smaller event, those curtains are just bid. And then hardscapes is essentially the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, and the roadways, the asphalt paving, what have you. And then video display package, Mortenson's been working with Daktronics on refining the scope on scoreboards, digital ribbon boards, and the exterior billboard that'll be above the main entrance. So getting closer to that. And we've also finalized the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. If you recall, back in December, we actually reached the business and financial terms, but then what we've worked on for the last 90 days is making sure the detailed scope of work that supports the GMP is documented in the amendment. And so we've reached both parts of that, and so we've locked in our GMP. Some upcoming pieces. Fegan Construction will move on site, and they'll start to set the precast stadia. That's essentially what forms the bowl, and that will attach the seats to. Those are being precasted at Gage Brothers. The Convention Center restroom build. Right now, if you're familiar with the west end of the Convention Center, the men's restroom, that's essentially being removed, and that area will be repurposed for our ticketing area. And so we've gone into the meeting room just to the north of that, taken a portion of that to rebuild the new restroom. And so working with the operator, they wanted to have that restroom back online, and so very soon that restroom will be online, and then we'll start the demolition of that existing restroom. And then the school district parking lot work will begin. That's at the building across the street. A number of site improvements will begin here very soon. All right, coordinating. There's a lot of parking lot and circulation roadway work that's planned for this year. As you look at the site, the purple, that is the parking lot that we're adding across the street for joint use of high flow events, but also for the school district. And then we've got the red area. The red area is the area that's been cordoned off since the beginning of the construction period, but now we're migrating into that orange area. The fence was just moved here recently, so we can start some of the removals and more of the work near the main entrance. And so one of the major changes for out on site is no longer can you go from the one large parking lot that you can access off west to that south parking lot. So we've put up signage to instruct that, and then ultimately we'll start to work around all those shades over the course of 2013 to build what's planned. All right, we've also had some very good meetings with the design elements and graphics committee meeting, and there's more work to do. But we have been reviewing the interior finishes, essentially the product samples that the interior designers have pulled, and then presented to the design elements team. And we've also revisited the seat fabric and color. We're not finalized on that on all these items yet, but we're getting very close. And just some feedback that we heard from our designers, also some of the event centers that we've seen. One was particular in Pittsburgh. That was important for us to reevaluate seat color. So more to come on all that. Councilor Aguilar was heavily involved with those meetings. Thank you. All right, just to give you a picture, and once the boards are ultimately finalized, we'll bring them forward. But these are some of the product samples that the design elements team was able to look at. The one on the left is the event level concourse. That's essentially the concourse as you just come into the facility. Some of that is the open space. Some of that is for the meeting and office space for SMG, and then also the locker rooms. And so that one set up those samples. The one on the main level concourse sets up, not only there's along the walls there's some use for those large tiles, but there's also a quartzite band. So the quartzite that's used there is incorporated into those stair towers. And then the restrooms are in the lower left of that area. You'll see there's more of a mosaic tile that's been picked. Like you'll see in a number of airports where the entrances into the restrooms are curved, so will the entrances into the new event center, and so that's why that's been picked. All right, and two other boards that were shown and discussed at great length is the clubs. There's a number of clubs on the main concourse. There's a public and a private club, and then on the west end there's a third club. One of the items that we asked the design architects to incorporate when we were selecting them is that we wanted them to pick elements that are from South Dakota, the region, and Sioux Falls. And so one of the elements that they picked is the stonework. And so in the upper is the quartzite. In the slate is on the upper right from Rapid City area, and then the Kasota stone is from the Minnesota area. And so all three of those stones will be incorporated into the building design. And then last, the suite level concourse, just a number of finishes and product samples that have been pulled to reflect a nice professional showing on the suite concourse. All right, I'll turn it over to Mike Cooper. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mike Cooper. I'm going to give you a quick update on the event parking coordination that we were able to positively accomplish over the last few months. The big one was our Home Show Summit League Tournament weekend. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend. We saw record crowds attend these events. And one of the reasons for the success in terms of parking is because we spent a lot of pre-event time working with the event coordinators, SMG, school district, sports authority, others, and home builders to get information out of where parking was going to be available, both on-site as well as off-site, and also the idea of providing a shuttle to both Elmwood Golf Course parking lot and McCart Field parking. And during the Home Show Summit League Tournament weekend, on Friday, which was basically just the home show, we had 2 20-passenger buses that were used to shuttle people to the 2 off-site locations. And during Friday, we averaged about 10 passengers per hour. And then on Saturday, as we had the basketball games going on at the same time as the home show, we started out the day with about 25 passengers per hour. And then as we started to see those peak crowds come in later in the day, we replaced one of the 20-passenger buses with a 36-passenger bus. And during the afternoon, we were up to 90 passengers per hour and into the evening scheduling. And then on Sunday, we came back down to about 25 passengers per hour. So it was a really successful way of providing some additional parking options for people that didn't have to fight to find a spot on site. And we expect that we'll probably continue to do that in the future. The additional events, the boys AA basketball tournament, also successful. We didn't have a major conflict there. And then the Kid Rock concert. So as we're looking into the future, the next challenge that we'll have will be coming up in May for the Howard Wood Field events. The first weekend in May, which is May 3rd and 4th, will be the Dakota Relays. And then later in the month, on May 24th and 25th, will be the state track meet at Howard Wood Field. The primary coordination there is going to be with the construction that Mark talked about on site. And as he mentioned, in front, parking lot A and parking lot B are no longer physically connected, so that's kind of a change that people are not used to. So through signage, through getting information out ahead of time, and through meetings that we'll have with the Sioux Falls School District and others, we think that we'll have another successful venue for those May events at Howard Wood Stadium. So that's a quick update of parking coordination. And next up is Darren Smith.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Darren Smith, Director of Community Development. Well, we're doing so well on time today, I might take a few more minutes than these guys usually give me and touch on a couple other things here. As each of you know, last month, on February 20th to be exact, we launched our suite sales effort with the new event center, and it was incredibly successful. Some of this information you already know, but I'm just going to briefly recap, not only for you, but the audience and the viewing public as well. We did have 18 suites that we put on sale at that time. Of those 18 suites that sold essentially in what amounted to about 3 business days, give or take, 8 of those suites sold for $45,000 per year per suite. Additionally, 8 suites sold for $40,000 per year per suite, and then 2 suites sold for $35,000 per year per suite. And the pricing, of course, was determined largely not only through the market analysis process, but also more simply through the size of the suites, the number of seats, the location, and so forth. So that's the reason for the 3 different price points. With respect to the terms, there were different term options, length of terms that buyers could enter into with these agreements. Again, really, we ended up landing exactly where we had hoped to going into it. We ended up with 9 of the 18 suites being purchased with 10-year agreements. That's the maximum term that was offered. 5 of the suites sold for 5-year or with 5-year agreements, and then 4 of the suites sold with 7-year agreements. The reason we are so happy with that mix of terms is because when you look down the road, you really don't want all of your suites, in addition to your other premium seating products and maybe sponsorships as well, you don't want all of those things renewing at the same time. You like to see them staggered if you can in a perfect world. And so I really don't think we could have achieved a better diversity than we were able to with this. So that was also very good. And just overall, the entire process exceeded our expectations in terms of how successful it could be. A couple things I wanted to touch on, still under the recap bullet point. There were approximately 12 to 15 businesses and individuals that expressed interest at some point during the process after the sales effort was launched. About 12 to 15 businesses that ultimately did not purchase a suite. And the point that I wanted to make and be very clear on is the way we were able to manage the process, every single one of the businesses that obviously purchased a suite or expressed interest at any time after the suites went on sale, every single one of them were contacted or in many cases we had direct communications with. Each of them had a chance to purchase a suite before they were sold out. And for whatever reason, in many cases, only they will know, those that did not purchase. For whatever reason, approximately 12 to 15 did not purchase. Now, you also need to understand, in that number of businesses, that includes everything from a short or a small number of those that I would consider serious potential suite buyers and probably the majority of that 12 to 15 were, I would characterize more as kicking the tires on the suites, inquiring, asking questions, wanting to learn more, but most likely, in my opinion, will end up being more appropriate or more likely loge box purchasers. But again, very important to note that the way we were able to manage the process, each of them had an opportunity to purchase. The last thing I would touch on here is whenever you conclude a process like this, I think it's good to look back and ask yourself, you know, did we get it right? Could it somehow have been done differently or better? And two things that I wanted to look at in particular with this would be the quantity of suites, the inventory that we ultimately had, and then the pricing. And I would just say in a nutshell, I think we nailed it with both of those. And that was all driven by the market analysis that Legend Sales and Marketing did, along with decisions that we were involved in as well. But we ended up obviously selling quickly, and with perhaps a short or, again, small number of businesses that would maybe purchase suites if we had additional suites to sell or will in the future. And that's what you want. You want to maintain demand if at all possible. As far as the pricing, again, I think we got the pricing right when you look at what other facilities in other cities have sold their suites for, and then you look at our market analysis that was done locally. And that's really what you need to rely on to drive these decisions. I think we got it exactly right, even with the benefit of hindsight. The process. Again, when something like this is concluded, especially when it's successful, I think that's the right time to take a look at what you've done. And I know a couple weeks ago in this chamber, there was a discussion on the process. And Councilor Jameson suggested perhaps a lottery process could have been used or could be used going forward. And I think it's good. I think it's healthy. And these are the types of discussions we want to be having, because at the end of the day, all of us only have one interest, and that's getting it right and doing the best job we can. We are very comfortable with the first come, first served process that we chose and plan to utilize again with loge box sales. But I did want to touch on, with the lottery process, touch on a couple of the challenges with that and the risks. And let me back up just for a second and say, if there's only one takeaway from my brief presentation today, I want each of you to please understand that everything we do with this project, every key decision, and I can say that specifically for those things that I've been directly engaged in, naming rights, premium seating sales, and sponsorship sales, everything we do, every decision we make comes typically with months of research, study, discussions, debates. So believe me, we looked at the process we ultimately selected, but we also looked at the possibility of a lottery, of other different processes, and again, are very comfortable with what we selected. Let me just touch on with the lottery, because I know that's still out there and it's fair, but I just want to give you some things to think about. When we looked at this and consider it again going forward with loge box sales, and that's what we've been doing the last few weeks before we get ready to take the next step. With loge box sales, and this really applies to the suite sales as well, we will have 3 loge box products. We'll have an 8-seat loge box, a 6-seat loge box, and a 4-seat loge box. Not unlike, in some respects, the suites that we just sold. We had 3 different price points and 3 different products, if you will. So one of the things you first ask yourself is, if you have a lottery, would you have one lottery with everybody's name in for all those products, or would you really have to have 3 different lotteries, one for each premium seating product, or I'm sorry, loge box product? The reason I say that is because some of the businesses have already made it clear and continue to make it clear that many of them only have an interest in one of those products. So for a business, maybe a larger business or one with lots of clients, they really need an 8-seat loge box. The 4-seat loge box, by comparison, it just doesn't have value to them. It's not worth it to them. To the contrary, if you have a smaller business, they're really only interested in a 4-seat loge box because that's what they can utilize regularly, and that's what works in their budget. So that's one of the first things you'd have to decide is how you do that, and it's going to work for some and not for others. You'd have to screen those out. If you had a lottery process, you'd have to somehow select who goes in the lottery. And what I mean by that is if you open it up just wide open, you're likely going to have literally hundreds or even thousands of people who could throw their name in if they're not committed or obligated in any way, shape, or form. So I think what you'd have to do, the only way you could do that is Legend Sales and Marketing would have to meet with each lottery participant in advance, probably have them sign some kind of document or agreement that would commit them or obligate them, and then they have to make a deposit check. And I don't know if it'd be refundable or non-refundable. Again, those are some of the things you'd have to decide. Some of the risks in doing that, if you ultimately have a lottery process and for whatever reason, and maybe it's because you put too many rules in place, if you have less participants than your supply, you have immediately devalued your product. And believe me, those who purchase suites and loge boxes, this is a savvy group. They're most likely successful in business or successful individuals in one way or another. And if you have 20 loge boxes, which is what we likely will have, and we only have 10 or a dozen lottery participants, well, you've immediately sent the message to them that doesn't matter what your asking price is, we know you have weak demand. And so we're not going to give you what you're asking, we'll make an offer. And that's not something we want to be involved in if we can help it. You know, all the names in the lottery, you know as well as I do, any type of process we would have like that, the media and others are going to want to know who are these people that have signed something or provided a check, who's in this lottery. So let's say we're fortunate enough to have 30 or 40 or 50 lottery participants, but we have 20 loge boxes available for purchase. You now are going to have 20, 30, or 40 very public losers who don't get their name pulled. And these are the folks that, in a typical process, we would want to immediately transition to start talking to them about other premium seating products and sponsorships, sponsorship opportunities. So not exactly the way you want to transition to talking about that. A couple final things here. With a lottery versus the process we've engaged in, there's no ability to have relationship building in a lottery process. And what I mean by that is when Legends meets with a suite or loge box buyer, and they do with each one of them, that's an opportunity to learn about that organization and for the organization or individual to learn about the facility and the other premium seating products and sponsorship opportunities we have. And it's not uncommon in that process to have them maybe look at purchasing something additionally or thinking of customers, clients, subcontractors, what have you, that they would refer Legends to for something else in the building. Also, during the market analysis that I touched on earlier, this question point blank was asked. When Legends Sales and Marketing engaged in market analysis over a several-month period in the community, they did 30 or more one-on-one meetings with a number of businesses that were a good cross-section of the community in terms of the different industries that we have. They point blank asked each one of them, what do you feel is the most appropriate or most fair process for us to pursue with this and for the community to have a chance to make these purchases? And literally one of the 30 or more, when given some options or choices, one of them said lottery. The vast majority collectively chose first come, first serve, or net worth, which we never seriously considered. So the bottom line is, I want you to know that a lot of time and effort goes into making these decisions before, so we aren't standing here in front of you having a very different conversation, that the process didn't work well, that we couldn't sell the suites, that we had to start negotiating prices. We could be having that conversation and other cities have, and clearly we're not, and that's a very positive thing. But it is a good time to have this type of conversation, but we do plan to use the first come, first serve again with loge box sales. And that's a nice segue into the last bullet point here. What is next? And it is loge box sales and also sponsorship sales. So we don't have a date yet in April, but we would anticipate launching loge box sales at some time in April. We definitely intend to do that. We also intend to start the sponsorship sales effort as well. That's going to look a little different than loge boxes and suites and even club seats. It's just a very different process and a different product. That'll be more long-term, probably over the next year or more, but that will begin in earnest as well. And with that, I will look forward to questions. I think next is Tracy Turback.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. Well, we were doing well on time.
Duly noted, thank you.
I don't have a lot of information to present, so just this one slide, we'll go rather quickly. This is a slide that should be familiar to you. It has been updated through the end of February 28th of 2013. It captures all of the project costs from the beginning of the project through that date, and you can see that the project funding, of course, has not changed. For some time now, we are still working within a total project funding of $117 million, and of course that includes the $2 million donation from Sanford Health. The project expenditures have been updated since the last presentation 2 months ago. You can, as I've been saying for several updates now, the construction costs are starting to ramp up, and you'll see those pick up steam as we get further into the construction process, and as Mark described real well with his part of the presentation, there's a lot happening out on site now, and we are seeing a lot of steel up in the air and concrete getting poured. So those costs for the construction part of the project will certainly grow rather quickly over the remainder of this year. Professional fees, which up until recently had been the largest portion of the expenditures to date, have slowed down considerably, and that will continue for the remainder of the project now that the design and packages have largely anyway been put out to bid. The total expended to date, about $15.4 million, which represents about 13% of the budget. So we have a long ways to go yet. We've made a lot of very good progress, I think, to this point in the project. So far, everything is really very much on track, and that's certainly very true with the financial piece of the project as well. Our next project update will be 2 months from now on May 28th, and we'll look forward to that. And with that, I will, and the rest of the team will be standing by for your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I want to confirm something first. The calendar online says our county meeting's at 5 o'clock. Our agenda is saying 5:30. Could you clarify that for me, Denise? Staff, are we 5 o'clock or 5:30? 5 o'clock. That's what I thought. Okay, so we have to have time to switch seating and all of those things. So I'm going to give us just 15 minutes to have this conversation if there are questions from council. I am going to control the number of questions. If you have lots, I'd ask you to keep it to 2 for now. We will get to that point where it's about 7 minutes till, and I will adjourn this meeting so that we can go into our meeting with Minnehaha County. If we haven't answered all of the questions by that point, I will invite the team to come back for part of our open discussion in the information meeting next Tuesday so that we can continue that conversation. We just have to honor that 5 o'clock time with Minnehaha County. So, that being said, questions from council for anyone on the team? Councilor Jamison.
Mark Cotter, if I could start, and I fire off a few, two, I guess.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that you had made a final arrangements or final agreement on the guaranteed maximum price. Mm-hmm. Was there a reason you didn't tell us what the amount is, or is it already a given?
Oh, I can certainly tell you. Well, our final project cost certainly hasn't changed, still at $117 million, and we're on track and on schedule. Our total GMP for the building's $99,081,971. Read it again.
Please.
$99,081,971. The remainder of the project is costs set aside for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, professional services fees, off-site improvements. Off-site improvements like last year was the off-site sanitary sewer that we brought to the facility, McCart Fields, and then also the owner's contingency. Cities. Yes.
Okay, and the other is the, all these updates are great. The idea of using big cranes and big equipment's exciting, I guess, but some of the things that I'd like to know each time is a couple of things. Are there changes that are being made in the project that are going to improve the fan experience that are over and above what we had originally planned, or changes that are going to improve the profitability of the building? If there's any changes like that, in the plus side or the negative side, if you could just tell us that, there's no changes this cycle, or perhaps we've had a couple opportunities to improve those options and we've done those things. If you could just add that to the part of the discussion, I think it'd be beneficial, at least to me.
Certainly.
And I'll yield the floor.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Jameson. Other questions from council? Councilor Rolfing, then Anderson.
Mark, percent of contracts that have been let so far? Are we we're not up to 100% yet, but we should be getting pretty
No,
close.
I assume we're close to 90. I'll probably have Jason Marinowski come forward with that.
Okay.
So today we've have basically about 90%, like Mark was saying, that we have received proposals on. We have 3% of that, so basically 87% of that we've actually awarded or contracted with subcontractors. 3% we're in the process of evaluating, and that 3% we should have resolved here within the next, call it 2 weeks, to get to that 90%.
Okay. And percent in Sioux Falls?
Percent in Sioux Falls, so depending on how you want to look at it, if you want to look at it from the number of employees, so we've orientated 372 people on site, of which we go with the first day of first hour orientation. Everybody's required to go through that. So 372 people have gone through that to date, of which 89% of those are local here to Sioux Falls. If you want to look at it from a different aspect as relates to funding or funds transferring through City of Sioux Falls contractors, we're at about 86%.
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Mike Cooper, please. Mike, you said that we're providing shuttle services during some of these events.
During that weekend of the home show and the Summit League basketball tournament,
Who provides that shuttle service? Is it the promoter, the city?
it was combined. It was a request originally from the home builders because of the concern about the conflict with their event. So it's being provided through the event and SMG, yes, the event promoters at SMG.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions from council? I'd like to hear from ones that haven't asked anything yet, and then we'll go back. Really? You're making it this easy on me? Councilor Jameson, would you like to go back?
Darren Smith, if I could. Well, first off, Darren, congratulations on the suite sales. I think that's exciting. That's a big piece of this whole event center project is that funding. So
Yep.
Congratulations for
Thank you.
and your team. The only thing I wanted to add on the lottery issue was you brought up, well, first off, you guys are in charge, and we're here just to give you some advice, and you're doing a fine job. You're doing a great job.
No, thank you.
And I'm glad to see all this discussion occurred behind the scenes without us even talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you brought up a lot of these ideas, the only thing I saw missing, and a lot of great information there, the only thing missing was the transparency of it all.
Yep.
And I just wanted to add and share that with you again, that I think there's some value in that transparency and for the public to see how these deals are done,
Yep.
and that just to know that there's no way for anything to get past.
Yeah.
That's all. I just wanted to share it with you. You don't have to really reply. I just want to make sure you knew that I had an interest in that transparency, because I think it'll benefit you.
Yep.
It'll benefit this group. It'll benefit the event center. You know, and all those individuals who were probably bidding on the suite, yeah, they didn't want to gamble or roll the dice on it. They wanted to be first on the list and be on the list. So, but I think for the public's sake, the transparency would have been beneficial.
Yeah, well, look, that's a common goal that we have, and I would just say at any time we welcome suggestions. With this one, you know, we had a press conference to launch the suite sales effort, and we told everybody, in fact, I repeated probably too many times, but made it very clear at that it was a first come, first serve, contact Legends directly, told them what the price levels would be. So, point well taken. I felt like we did a good job with that, but again, we're open to suggestions and ways to do it better. But thank you.
Okay. Let me do Councilor Aguilar and then Staggers.
Could we, it's probably Mark. Mark, has anything been decided about the exterior billboard? I know we had a discussion at our committee meeting that maybe we were looking at something different than what had been shown in some of the renderings, and so if you could explain what the choices are to the council.
Certainly. You know, one of the items on the digital video package is that large billboard above the main entrance. And so we, as a design elements team and the design team, started to revisit that to say, are we getting enough exposure out of that billboard? Because when people are parking, and I may just go back here. Go to the aerial flight. So when you park and you actually walk up to the main entrance, you've already made your decision to come. And so we thought it was worth at least revisiting to say, do we put all those dollars in that billboard, or would we be better served to put a billboard on West or on Russell Street? And so, you know, it generated a lot of good discussion. We feel like we do have a good price, at least today, from Daktronics, because there is some good energy and excitement that we can have with that billboard. The other side of it is it screens an area behind it that, you know, it's the connection between the convention center and the new facility, and so something needs to go there. And so one of the discussions was, do we just take that to a static and say, you know, put a name on that billboard static, or do we still take the approach and put a digital board up there? And I think the consensus was we can get some value out of that. We involved our operator to get some value out of that digital billboard. And then ultimately we are going to pursue at a later time putting up a potentially a large marquee on Russell Street. But it was a good discussion, and you know, just like these fan enhancements, they happen every day. We had a discussion with the Design Elements Committee that there's really two different fabrics that you can buy for these seats. And Terry Torkelson will tell you that, you know, they're tested at so many uses, and if you step up to this, they're a lot easier to clean. They will last 4 times longer. There's a delta in price. I'm forgetting what the fabric is called. Sports weave. And so we've seen it at a few of the other event centers, and when you have that, they look cleaner, they look longer, they're easier for the building to maintain. So that's an enhancement that the Design Elements team is weighing, and so is the project team, to incorporate into the building. And so there's discussions about, as Darren said, a lot of discussions about his area. There's a lot of discussions about the building on a daily basis. And so I think adding a slide on enhancements, I think will be a good discussion, especially on that 60-day window, so you guys can see some of the changes and enhancements that we're incorporating. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
It's not an easy answer.
Yeah, for the council's information, Terry Torkelson is very excited about the potential of the sports fabric because you can take it out and you can power wash it like a man.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, Darren Smith. Yeah, Darren, in talking about the process, we didn't always talk just about lottery. It was brought up about the possibility of having an auction with a minimum bid. Was there any consideration about that?
Well, there was just briefly. I mean, there were a number of different processes, and you have to understand that we are relying to a large extent on Legend Sales and Marketing. I mean, we hired them to do this. They're, in my opinion, one of the leaders not only in North America but globally in terms of what they do. They do have a history and a lot of experience, and so that was all part of the discussion. But with an auction, I mean, I would honestly tell you it was discussed briefly. We just didn't think that would really appeal here and be the appropriate process, and it's less stable too in terms of when you're trying to determine what your revenue projections are and hitting those goals. It's just less stable, and then when you think about how that process could unfold and really drill down into it beyond the surface, we just didn't think it'd be the right process for here.
Okay, that answers your question, Councilor Staggers. Okay, I'm running through one more time those that haven't had questions. Okay, Councilor Jameson has one more question, and we're down to about 3
Quick question,
minutes.
Parking, if anybody who would handle that. Mike, is that you? All right, yeah, this is a little loaded maybe. I was fortunate enough to watch the meeting last week from a different location, but I noticed that on the consent agenda we are agreeing to lease a building across the street from City Hall. Is there an attempt potentially to move people out of that utility billing building across the street of Western and turn that into a parking lot or do something with that? Or is there just any plans with that to add to the parking?
Well, in that location, we've looked at what the long-term options are for that facility. Some time ago when the city was looking at the Midland building downtown, that was one of the buildings, the annex and some ground along with some cash was used to consider that type of a proposal. That's been some years now. But we have looked at it to say, is that the highest probable use for that building? The environmental team that utilized about 25% of that building, which is on the east side of it, they are moved to their new environmental center. And so to save dollars on this project, Mortenson's moved into that area. Instead of them bringing in temporary trailers, we've provided that space to them at no cost because we would have paid for portable trailers for them to office on site. And so there's no short-term objective for the utility billing, but as Public Works, we're always looking to see, is that the best place for us long-term? Today, it's very easy to get to. It has decent parking, but we're not tied to it. And so ultimately, it's a fairly small parcel to really repurpose. I've personally taken a couple developers there to see, is there any opportunity at this site? And so we haven't explored it any further. But I will tell you, over the course of the last 5 to 6 years, we've evaluated that building, and we'll continue to do that, whatever building we're in.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Cotter. Thanks, councilors, for your conversation. And I just remind you, we did have a report on the space needs study from Sue Beckett 2-3 weeks ago, and we talked about that leasing space and what's going in there at that time. I will adjourn this meeting now. But before I do, did we cover everything council wants to cover on this particular report? I'm seeing nodding of heads, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 5 o'clock. We come back with Minnehaha County.